It is Monday morning, February 2nd, 2026. And if you have opened, well, pretty much any social media app, or even just the news, in the last 24 hours, you've seen the
And you
video.
cannot miss it. It is absolutely everywhere.
I mean, it is probably the most polarizing 60 seconds of video we have seen this whole year.
For sure.
We're talking about Bailey Hill Ringer. She's a first-grade teacher at Audubon Elementary down in San Diego. She posts this clip, I think, Sunday afternoon, and the visual is just, it's striking.
It really is. You see her in her classroom, right, with all the tiny chairs and the finger paintings on the wall.
Exactly, and she stands there and very deliberately flips the American flag upside down.
And right next to that flag, she's got a sign taped to the whiteboard, just marker on paper. It says, "Abolish ICE."
2 million views overnight. The comments are, well, exactly what you'd expect, a total war zone. But here's the thing, and this is why we're doing this deep dive. If you think this is just about one teacher, venting on TikTok, you're missing the bigger picture.
Right. This is not some isolated incident. It's more like a signal flare.
A signal flare. That's a perfect way to put it. We're looking at this massive resurgence of the Abolish ICE movement. It's been building all through January, but now it has landed in the one place we try to keep this stuff out of.
The first grade classroom.
Yeah. And that collision, between huge national politics and a local schoolhouse, it creates a legal and, frankly, an ethical mess that I don't think most people really get.
No, they don't.
So that's our mission today. We're going to move past the outrage bait. We need to unpack why this movement has come roaring back right now. And the polling data on this is genuinely shocking.
It is.
And then we're going to tear down the legal reality, because when a teacher walks through those school doors, their First Amendment rights, they change shape in ways that might really surprise you.
It's a kind of constitutional paradox, isn't it? We have a situation where the 6-year-old sitting at the desks might actually have more protected political speech rights than the adult standing at the front of the room.
That sounds completely backward.
Yeah.
But okay, let's get into it. First, the slogan itself, Abolish ICE. That phrase, to me at least, it feels like a flashback.
Oh, totally, to 2018.
Right, the family separation crisis at the border. The slogan went mainstream, but then it kind of faded.
It did. It really receded. It got framed as a very fringe, hard-left activist position, and the polls showed almost no support for it for years.
But the data you found suggests that is flipped dramatically.
It's a complete inversion. I was looking at the polling from Civics. Back in August 2024, support for abolishing ICE was hovering around 20%.
Okay, so 20%, a clear minority.
A clear minority. Fast forward to last month, January 2026, that number hit 46%.
Wait, 46? From 20 to 46%. That's not just activists anymore.
Not at all.
That's nearly half the country. What on earth happened in the last year and a half to cause that?
Well, the narrative shifted, and this is really the key to understanding all of this. It stopped being an abstract debate about, immigration policy.
And it became what?
It became a visceral issue of citizen safety. And for that, you have to look at what happened in Minneapolis.
You're talking about Operation Metro Surge.
Correct. January was a really bloody month. You had these high-profile raids like Midway Blitz, Safeguard. But the tipping point wasn't the deportations. It was the collateral damage.
The deaths of Renée Good and Alex Pretti.
Exactly. And let's be super clear here for everyone listening. These were not undocumented immigrants.
No. U.S. citizens.
U.S. citizens. Bystanders killed during these enforcement operations. And when you have 6 deaths in custody in 1 month, and 2 of them are American citizens, the whole calculus changes. People start thinking, this isn't making me safe, this is a public safety hazard.
It stops being political and starts feeling very, very personal.
Precisely. And all that energy, it culminated in what we saw last Friday, National Shutdown Day.
People refusing to work, refusing to spend money.
And, crucially for our story, refusing to send their kids to school.
Which brings us right back to Bailey Hill Ringer. She's not just acting in a vacuum. She's reacting to this, to those deaths.
Yes, but the way she did it. Flipping that flag, that's a very specific, very loaded choice.
I wanted to ask about that because for me, growing up, an upside-down flag meant one very specific thing. But it feels like the meaning has sort of drifted.
It's a fascinating symbol. I kind of call it the horseshoe theory of the flag.
Horseshoe theory? How so?
Well, originally, under the U.S. flag code, it's a distress signal. Pure and simple. It comes from nautical tradition. It means, my ship is sinking, send help.
An SOS.
An SOS, exactly. But politically, it's been adopted by everyone. In the 70s, during Vietnam, it was the anti-war left. There was even a Supreme Court case, Spence v. Washington, about a student who taped a peace sign over an upside-down flag.
Okay, so it starts on the left?
It does. But then jump to 2022. After the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago, you saw upside-down flags everywhere on the right. During January 6th, they were all over the crowd at the Capitol. And now, in 2026, it's swung back to the anti-ICE movement.
So it's become this universal shorthand for the entire system is broken and I feel like I'm in danger.
That's it exactly. It's the one thing the far left and the far right seem to agree on. The ship is sinking. They just profoundly disagree on why.
The problem, though, isn't the signal, is where she sent it from. You know, if I hang an upside-down flag from my porch, my neighbors might not be happy, but I'm not getting fired.
Correct. You have very broad protections on your own property.
But Ms. Ringer did it in a public school classroom, full of 6-year-olds. And this is where the parents and groups like Libs of TikTok come in, saying, you are indoctrinating my child. Which, I guess, brings us to the core legal question. Does she even have the right to do that?
And this is where we have to bust a really big myth. You probably know the famous line from Tinker v. Des Moines.
Oh, yeah. Teachers and students do not shed their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate.
That's the one. It's the go-to defense for free speech in schools.
Yeah.
But here's the nuance everyone misses. That quote is almost entirely about the students. When it comes to the teachers, the law is, well, it's totally different.
Because they're employees.
Because they are the government. There's this legal concept called imprimatur.
Imprimatur. Okay, that's a $10 word. Break that down.
It basically means an official stamp of approval. When a teacher stands at the front of that classroom, they aren't speaking as a private citizen anymore. They are speaking as the school district. They're the mouthpiece of the state.
So if I'm a teacher and I say abolish ICE in class, the school can basically say that it said abolish ICE.
Yes. The controlling case is a 2006 Supreme Court case, Garcetti v. Chabalos, and it ruled that when public employees make statements as part of their official duties, the First Amendment doesn't protect them from being disciplined by their employer.
Wow. That's a huge distinction. So it's nothing like a university professor who has academic freedom. A first-grade teacher is just hired to deliver a curriculum.
Exactly. And the courts see K through 12 students, especially first graders, as a captive audience.
They can't just get up and leave.
Right. So the school has a compelling interest in making sure the teacher isn't using that captive audience to push their own political agenda.
So Mrs. Ringer's defense, she's just expressing a personal opinion that probably holds no water legally.
In a classroom setting. Very, very little. There's another standard from a case called Hazelwood that lets a school restrict speech if it's inconsistent with the basic educational mission. And, you know, flipping a flag for 6-year-olds, that almost certainly qualifies.
But here's the twist mentioned. The kids in that same classroom, they have different rights.
Completely different rules. If a student in her class wore a T-shirt that said, Abolish ICE, or for that matter, a MAGA hat, the school generally cannot touch them.
Unless it causes a major disruption.
Right, that's the substantial disruption standard from Tinker. But just offending someone isn't enough. It has to actually stop the school from functioning. And in a state like California, the law goes even further to protect student protest.
Is it true? I saw in the notes that a student can get an excused absence for a protest.
It is 1 per year. A student can literally say, I'm skipping school to go to a political rally, and as long as they follow the rules, the school has to mark it as excused.
That creates such a bizarre power dynamic. The teacher is effectively gagged by the state, while the student is empowered by that same state to be a political actor.
It flips the whole hierarchy on its head, and you see it when these realities collide, like that incident in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
The teacher who got into a shouting match with the student about the shooting, it just gets ugly.
Let's talk about the pushback for a second. Because you have school board members, people like Kenny Annie in Paso Robles or Sandra Shaw in Chino Valley, looking at this and saying this is all just fear-mongering.
They are.
Their argument is that the Abolish ICE side is telling kids schools aren't safe, that ICE is coming for them in the classroom.
And that's the narrative that spreads like wildfire on TikTok. But we have to be factual here. DHS and ICE have a long-standing sensitive locations policy.
Meaning they don't do raids inside schools.
Right. They have stated it over and over, and the record shows they don't conduct enforcement inside schools, hospitals, or churches.
So if a teacher tells her class, you aren't safe here, well, she's technically spreading misinformation.
From a direct enforcement standpoint, yes. The school is actually the safest place for that child to be during the day. But the fear in the community is still very real, and that fear has a real economic price tag.
This was the part of the research that really blew my mind. The connection between all these protests and the school's actual budget.
It's the boring administrative detail that drives everything. California is one of only 7 states that funds its schools based on ADA.
Average daily attendance.
Average daily attendance. Meaning, if a student isn't physically in their seat, the school doesn't get paid for that day.
So every time a student walks out for a protest or just stays home because their parents are afraid, the school district loses money.
Exactly. It becomes a self-inflicted wound. You're effectively defunding the very institution that's meant to be a sanctuary.
And it's not just immigrant families keeping their kids home either.
No, and this is the bigger takeaway, I think. We're seeing a kind of bipartisan exodus from public schools.
The homeschooling numbers, tell me about those.
So we looked at the data for the 2024-25 school year. Nationally, homeschooling is up about 5%. But in the states that track the reason why families are leaving, there is an 80% spike in families citing environment or curriculum.
So you have one group of parents pulling their kids out because they fear for their physical safety.
And another group pulling their kids out because they see a TikTok from someone like Bailey Hill Ringer and think, I do not want my child taught by a political activist.
It's a vote of no confidence from both sides of the aisle.
It really is. And that's dangerous. Because public school is supposed to be the one place where we all have to sit in the same room together.
If we lose that,
what
happens? If we just segregate ourselves into red homeschools and blue homeschools before we even learn multiplication.
It just accelerates the polarization we're already seeing. The school becomes a proxy war. We can't solve immigration in Congress, so we fight about it in the first grade art room.
And we ask teachers to manage this massive failure of national policy.
And they just aren't equipped for it. These legal frameworks, Garcetti, Hazelwood, they were designed to keep schools focused on education. But they're like dams. And right now, the floodwaters of our political culture are just washing right over the top.
So Bailey Hill Ringer, she's just the first crack in that dam.
I think so. And whatever happens to her job, and frankly, the legal precedents do not look good for her, the pressure isn't going away. Not when polling shows nearly half the country feels the system is an active threat. That feeling is going to bleed into the classroom, one way or another.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy question to chew on. We always like to end with a provocation, and I think today it has to be this.
We always say, schools are supposed to be the laboratories of democracy.
Right.
But if the teachers are legally barred from expressing any kind of political distress, and the students are the only ones with the freedom to walk out and demand change, who is actually teaching whom?
And as more and more parents just opt out of the system entirely, from both sides, are we losing the last truly shared space in American life?
A very distinct possibility.
Well, on that sobering thought, I think we'll wrap it up. If you want to read the actual text of Garcetti v. Ceballos or see the civics polling data, we've linked to all of it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's worth a look. The legal definitions of official duties are trickier than you'd think.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We will be back next time with another stack of papers and another problem to unpack. Stay curious, everyone.
Take care.